Stop everything you are doing right now, because Cardi B just did the one thing a superstar at the peak of a comeback is never supposed to do. She grabbed a live microphone, looked her own fanbase dead in the eye, and told the very people who built her empire that they get on her nerves so badly she could not sleep, that she literally went to bed and dreamed about cursing them out. And that is only the first 10% of the story. Because in the same session, Cardi B told those same fans to shut up, told them exactly what they could go suck, announced on a live mic that she would rather be overseas in a rich man's bed than doing the job that pays for her life, and accidentally ripped the curtain off the two-man soap opera running her personal life behind the scenes. Boyfriend number 2. Baby daddy number 2. A leaked music video shot in broad daylight in the Bronx. A fan who nearly left that set in handcuffs. And a whisper floating across the ocean from Italy that I am going to lock in a drawer for now, but trust me, we are circling back to it, and when we do, you are going to understand why the timing of everything Cardi B said this week suddenly looks very, very different. This is not a drill. This is a self-inflicted Category 5 crash out, and by the end of this video you will know exactly why the internet is split clean in half tonight, one side calling Cardi B the most ungrateful superstar in rap, the other side saying her fans finally got the reality check they had coming for years. Before we dive into the wreckage, do me one quick favor. Hit that like button, drop your take in the comments, subscribe, and turn your notifications on, because the way this story is moving, with new angles surfacing by the hour, there is almost certainly going to be a part 2, and you are going to want to be first in the room when it drops. Now, let's set the table properly, because you cannot understand how explosive this meltdown was until you understand exactly what was sitting on the table when it happened. Cardi B is not some struggling artist begging the algorithm for a moment right now. Cardi B is in the middle of one of the loudest, most closely watched comeback runs in female rap. Her surprise single just crash-landed at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100. Let me say that again slowly so it sinks in the way it should. A surprise release. No 6-month rollout. No playlisting blitz. No radio deal humming in the background. And it still posted the highest debut of any female rap song this entire year. The highest of the year. In a music economy where major labels burn 7 figures fighting for a single week of public attention, Cardi B walked in through the side door, barely knocked, and took the number anyway. That is not luck. That is gravity. Whatever you think about her, the woman moves the culture every single time she decides to move at all. And with a record performing like that, the next move was obvious to everyone watching. A music video. A big one. A moment. Cardi B herself had been teasing visuals for the single, and the fans, the same fans we are about to put under a microscope, were foaming at the mouth waiting for it. And remember who we are talking about here. The woman behind WAP. Behind money. Behind some of the most expensive-looking, cinematic, manufacturing music videos of the last 10 years. Videos that did not just premiere, they detonated. Videos that became Halloween costumes, think pieces, congressional talking points. The bar for one of her videos is not sitting on the floor somewhere. The bar is in the penthouse, wearing couture, drinking something that costs more than your car. Keep that bar in your mind, hold it tight, because the distance between that bar and what fans believed they were seeing this week is the exact pool of gasoline this entire fire is running on. So here is where the story takes its first hard left turn. She took the production home. The Bronx. Her borough. The streets that raised her, the backdrop that gives her entire origin story its electricity. Broad daylight. Middle of the neighborhood. And before the cameras had even cooled down, the footage was everywhere. Not from one sneaky paparazzo crouched in a bush with a zoom lens, from everybody. Fan accounts had clips circulating within the hour. Twitter turned into a wall of shaky vertical video. TikTok had angles of this shoot that I did not even know physically existed. The Instagram blogs were slicing the footage into reels like a butcher working a holiday shift. Cardi B was trending worldwide off a music video that does not officially exist yet. Read that sentence one more time, slowly. The video has not dropped. There is no release date. There is no official frame of footage. And the entire internet had already watched it in pieces, like a jigsaw puzzle assembled by 10,000 strangers. Then TMZ pulled up and poured its own cup of gasoline on the fire. According to their reporting, the shoot got so chaotic that a fan on location nearly left the premises in handcuffs for refusing to comply with the rules of the set. Let that detail breathe for a second. Police were present. Security was present. This was, by every account, a controlled production, controlled right up until the exact moment it collided with the general public holding roughly 4,000 camera phones. A fan nearly arrested. On a music video shoot. For a video that the artist had not announced, had not premiered, and had very clearly not approved for public consumption. Now, let me play fair for a moment, because somebody in the comments is already typing it at full speed. She was filming outside. In New York City. In broad daylight. In the Bronx, where Cardi B is not a celebrity, she is practically a municipal landmark. There is a real argument, a strong one, that leaks were not a possibility on that set. They were a mathematical certainty. You cannot roll a superstar production through a public street and expect the cone of silence from a Marvel movie. Even with police on location, and Cardi B herself pointed out that police were there, you cannot confiscate every phone in a 5-block radius. You cannot unring a bell that loud. That is the generous reading of this situation, and I am putting it on the record right now so nobody can slide into the comments claiming I never said it. But here is the other side of the coin, and honestly, after sitting with this, I believe this is the side that actually lit the fuse. It probably was not TMZ that sent Cardi B over the edge. TMZ is going to TMZ. Blogs are going to blog. That is the ecosystem, and she understands that ecosystem better than almost any artist alive. This is a woman who has weaponized the blogs for a decade, who knows exactly how the gossip machine digests a story. No, what appears to have genuinely cut her was that the leak pipeline was being fed by her own people. Fan pages. Day One supporters. Accounts with her name permanently installed in their bios. From where she sits, I imagine the internal logic went something like this. The machine, I understand, but why are my own fans sprinting to publish unfinished, unapproved, unpolished footage of my work before I ever get the chance to present it myself? And layered directly on top of that insult came the injury that turned ordinary irritation into a full eruption. The fans were not just leaking the footage. They were reviewing it. Critiquing it. Rating it. Calling it cheap. Saying the visuals were not living up to her standard, not giving what a Cardi B video is supposed to give. Unfinished footage. Of an unfinished video. Judged and sentenced like a final product by the very people who claim to love her the most. Keep that specific detail in your pocket, because when we get to the Spaces audio, and we are getting to it, you are going to hear a woman who is not simply angry about a leak. You are going to hear a woman who feels like she was graded on a rough draft, in public, by her own family. And family fights are always the ugliest ones, and erupt she did. She pulled up to Twitter Spaces, because of course she did. Spaces is her chosen battlefield, her gladiator arena, the one place on the internet where she can swing back with her own voice and zero editing, and what followed was less of an address to fans and more of a full exorcism. Let me walk you through what she actually said, because the clips floating around the timeline right now are chopped to pieces, and the full context is somehow even wilder than the highlights. She opened with something that almost sounded like tenderness. Almost. She told the fans that the same way she always makes a point to tell them she loves them, she has to be equally honest with them when they are getting on her nerves. A balanced relationship, in her framing. Honesty in both directions. And then she informed thousands of listeners, live, that they had gotten on her nerves so severely that she could not sleep. She went to bed angry. And then, her words, not mine, she fell asleep and literally dreamed about cursing them out. Sit with that image for a second. The fans are so loud inside this woman's head that they are following her into her dreams to collect their yelling. That is not a fan base anymore. That is a haunting. That is a ghost that comments. Then came the diagnosis, and this is where the sociology of this whole situation gets genuinely fascinating. She told the fans that they do too much, they cry too much, and they complain too much. 3 counts, read into the record. And then she explained her own wiring. She credited it to being a Libra, so take that up with the zodiac and not with me, and admitted that once she gets aggravated, she does not retreat, reflect, and journal about it. She crashes out. Her framing. Her words. An ultimate crash out, in her own description, the kind where everybody catches it. And this next part is the part every aspiring artist, influencer, and public figure should clip, save, and study, because it is a genuinely revealing look at the psychology of a star at this level. She said that when the fans complain, it does not motivate her to course correct. It does not make her sit down at a desk and restructure her rollout, rethink her visuals, or upgrade her strategy. It makes her want to tell them to shut up, tell them precisely what they can go suck, and I am cleaning that up for the algorithm. She was not cleaning it up for anybody, and then do absolutely nothing at all. That is the psychology she put on the record. Complaints do not inspire her. Complaints deactivate her. Pressure does not produce diamonds here. Pressure produces a middle finger and a nap. Then she turned to the substance of the complaints themselves, the aesthetics, the visuals, the money conversation. The fans had been grumbling that the new material did not look like money, did not look like WAP, did not look expensive. And her answer, essentially, was, correct, and get used to it. She explained that not every record is going to arrive with the same cinematic treatment. Some records are planned to the teeth, the video, the playlisting, the rollout, all the bells and whistles. And some records, she said, she simply wants to throw out into the world for the love of it, for the fun of it, because demanding that every single release be a high-budget cinematic event is exhausting. She addressed the fans' hunger for competition too, the obsession with top 10 debuts, with numbers, with matching the spectacle of her biggest eras, and she basically asked the question out loud to the entire timeline, what do you think this is? A blockbuster every single time? Not everything is going to look like that. Not everything is going to cost like that. Now, I want to be precise here, because there are two completely different ways to hear that rant, and the internet civil war raging at this exact moment comes down entirely to which ear you listen with. Ear number one hears a real one. An artist setting boundaries. A woman telling a spoiled fanbase that art is not a vending machine, that surprise records come with surprise budgets, and that parasocial entitlement eventually sends an invoice to the artist's sanity. There is a real, defensible argument sitting right there, and plenty of fans made it proudly. They pointed out that the leak culture inside that fanbase is genuinely corrosive, that leaking unfinished work and then trashing it publicly is not support, it is sabotage wearing a fan page costume. Ear number two, though, ear number two hears something very different. Ear number two hears a superstar telling her customers to lower their expectations while she raises her prices. Ear number two hears an artist who wants blockbuster numbers for mixtape effort. And we are about to get to the clip, the second clip, the one that did the real damage, that turned ear number two into the loudest room on the entire internet. Keep your seat, because the tone is about to shift from philosophical to nuclear, because she did not stop at the leaks. Later in that same Spaces session, the mask slipped all the way off, and this is the clip that has the timeline in a chokehold tonight. She told the fans that she was already stressed from the day before, and that today, she had to go back to work again. Let me repeat the framing exactly the way it landed, because in this story the framing is everything. A global superstar. Mid-comeback. Sitting on the highest female rap debut of the year. Describing the act of going back to work on her own music career in the tone of a teenager being forced into a Saturday shift at a drive-thru. The tone was not gratitude. The tone was not hunger. The tone was grievance. And then she said the part that you could practically hear the internet screenshotting in real time. She said that fans complaining online does not motivate her to go harder, it makes her want to, and I am quoting with the explicit material trimmed for your monetization safety, take a flight and go take some, male companionship. Her exact words, minus the biology lesson. She said she could be doing that right now, at that very moment. She said she was supposed to be overseas living her best life. And then she delivered the line she clearly believed was the rebuttal to end all rebuttals, the one she wanted printed on the headline. She told herself she is putting her hustle before everything. She is, in her own words, on a money run. Now, you might hear that and think, okay, that is discipline. That is sacrifice. That is a woman choosing the grind over the getaway. And I understand why her defenders ran with that reading, I truly do. But that is not how it landed with the wider audience, and the reason it did not land is actually simple. When a fan hears, I could be overseas taking companionship, but instead I am on a money run, the fan does not hear sacrifice. The fan hears that the music is the obstacle standing between Cardi B and her happiness, not the source of it. And for a fan base that has waited through delay after delay, era after era, defending this woman against every rival fanbase on the internet with nothing but faith, memes, and sheer stubbornness, hearing the music described as the thing blocking her best life, that hit a nerve the size of the Verrazano Bridge. You have to understand the history these fans carry into every one of these moments. These are people who have spent years, literal years, fighting online wars on her behalf. Every time a rival fanbase came for her numbers, her pen, her accent, her past, her motherhood, her marriage, these fans suited up and went to battle for free. No retainer. No thank you note. Just loyalty. They pre-saved. They streamed. They bought. They trended hashtags at 3 in the morning. So when the object of all that devotion gets on a microphone and frames working on the music, the very thing the entire relationship is built on, as an inconvenience keeping her from a better life elsewhere, the betrayal they feel is not rational, but it is real, and it is loud. And the backlash was immediate, and it was remarkably specific. Fans started saying out loud what they used to only whisper in group chats, that it no longer feels like Cardi B is in the game for the love of the game. That she seems pressured into working, resentful of working, and permanently one inconvenience away from announcing she would rather be anywhere else on earth. Some of them went even further with it. They accused her of having unlimited energy for everything except the career itself, energy for spaces, energy for arguments, energy for the timeline, energy for clapbacks, energy for her love life. But somehow, mysteriously, the studio is where the battery dies. Harsh. Absolutely. Invented out of thin air with no receipts. That is for you to decide, and I already know the comments are going to be a war zone over exactly that question. But hold on. Hold on, because buried inside that rant was one single word that cracked this entire story open like an egg, and the fans caught it within minutes. Overseas. She was supposed to be overseas living her best life. Overseas where, Cardi B? Overseas with whom? Because the internet knows exactly who currently resides overseas. The internet has been watching that situation like a NATO surveillance program for months. And his name is about to enter this story, followed shortly after by the other man, the one with the baby, the one with the truck, the one the timeline cannot stop investigating. 2 men. 2 continents. 1 space's rant. And somehow, all of it is connected. Let's talk about Muka. For anyone joining this saga late, Muka is the man who has been romantically linked to Cardi B, a man the blogs initially labeled her Italian boo, which is funny, because he is not actually Italian at all. He is Nigerian. He simply lives in Italy. But, Italian boo sounded better in a headline, so the internet ran the misprint like it was scripture, and honestly, at this point, the nickname has tenure. The details of Muka and Cardi B have been dripped out across the timeline for months, sightings, whispers, timelines cross-referenced by fan detectives who genuinely deserve federal investigator salaries. And now here is Cardi B, live on spaces, telling the world she was supposed to be overseas living her best life, and everyone with functioning pattern recognition knew exactly which overseas she meant. She did not say Italy. She did not have to. The map in everyone's head lit up like a flight tracker. Now, here is where I have to be honest with you about something, and I am choosing my words carefully. When Cardi B dropped that overseas crumb on spaces, a lot of people heard it as a spontaneous vent. Just a woman fantasizing out loud about escape. But some of us have watched this woman operate for too long to believe any crumb she drops in public is accidental. She has been famous for nearly a decade. She understands, at a surgical level, exactly what the internet does with a breadcrumb. She has watched fan accounts build entire documentaries out of a single emoji. So when she casually mentions being overseas living her best life on a hot mic, at the exact moment when, and we are getting to this in 60 seconds, so stay seated, the timeline was actively speculating that she had been creeping back around with her baby's father, you have to at least consider the possibility that the crumb was a message. Not a fantasy. A message. To the blogs. To the fans. And possibly, to one specific man. And that is the perfect moment for me to tell you about the thing I am deliberately not fully telling you yet. I received something. A piece of information, sent to me directly, that has not been confirmed, has not been verified, and I am not reckless enough to broadcast it as fact, but I am also not disciplined enough to pretend it does not exist. Here is what I will say. There is a whisper going around that Muka was recently spotted in Italy, and allegedly not alone. Allegedly, in the company of another famous woman. An actress. Possibly a singer. That is all I am giving you right now, because if this turns out to be smoke with no fire, I am not attaching anybody's name to it. But if it turns out to be real, Then this entire week, the Spaces rant, the overseas comment, the timing of all of it, gets reread from page 1 with a completely different pair of eyes. Keep that locked in the back of your mind. We will absolutely be coming back to it, and when we do, I want you to remember the exact moment you first heard it. Because while the Italy whisper was doing laps in the shadows, the rest of the internet was busy investigating a completely different man. And this is where the story stops being about music at all and becomes a full-blown relationship thriller, Stefon Diggs. Baby Daddy number 2. For anyone who somehow missed the last year of this timeline, Cardi B and Stefon Diggs share a child, a baby boy who is not even 1 year old yet. They split. It was public, it was messy, and it produced enough content to power the entire gossip economy through a whole quarter. And according to every rule of a clean celebrity breakup, these two should currently be communicating exclusively through attorneys, nannies, and iced-out intermediaries. Except the fans noticed something. Recently, she posted a video, and in that video, sitting there in the frame like it paid for its own camera time, was a Mercedes G-Wagon. And the internet immediately did what the internet does. Fan detectives pulled the footage, zoomed in, enhanced, compared, contrasted, and concluded that the G-Wagon in Cardi B's video appeared to be the same G-Wagon belonging to Stefon Diggs. The same truck Stefon Diggs was seen stepping out of on his very first day of practice with the Commanders. Same color. Same profile. Same energy. And just like that, the reunion speculation caught fire. Is Cardi B back with Stefon Diggs? Were they ever fully separated? Is baby daddy number 2 quietly reinstalled? Now, I am going to do something that a lot of channels in this space refuse to do, because panic gets more clicks than perspective. I am going to be fair. There are, and I cannot stress this enough, thousands of G-Wagons on this planet. It is the official vehicle of people who want you to know they have money without having to say it. Athletes drive them. Rappers drive them. Real estate agents who close one house a year lease them. Two wealthy people in the same industry owning the same luxury truck is not a scandal, it is a Tuesday. I genuinely do not know if that was Stefon Diggs' truck in her video, and neither does anybody in the comments section, no matter how confident they sound typing it. But here is the part that actually matters, the part the timeline keeps sprinting past on its way to the conspiracy board. Stefon Diggs and the mother of his youngest child do not need a secret romantic reunion to be in each other's orbit. They share a child. An infant. A little boy under the age of 1. And from everything that has been publicly visible, Stefon Diggs is, credit where credit is due, a present father. He is as present with his children as his schedule allows, and that includes the child he shares with Cardi B. Which means contact is not a scandal. Contact is a custody reality. They are going to be in each other's lives, at each other's events, around each other's vehicles, for the next 18 plus years minimum. That is not creeping. That is co-parenting. And some of y'all are going to have to develop an emotional tolerance for it, because what exactly is the plan when that baby turns 1? When there is a birthday party with both parents in the same frame? Is the internet going to melt down every single time these two people stand within 50 feet of the child they made together? Because if so, buy stock in think pieces, because we are going to be reading them for 2 decades. So now, go back to the Spaces rant with all of this loaded in your head. She is on a live mic, fans are actively stitching together a Stefon Diggs reunion narrative off a truck sighting, and suddenly, conveniently, she is telling the world she would rather be overseas living her best life. Not overseas generally. Overseas specifically, where a certain Nigerian gentleman who is not Italian but lives in Italy currently resides. You tell me, was that a woman venting? Or was that a woman with a decade of media warfare experience doing what she has always done, controlling the narrative with a sentence instead of a press release? Dropping one crumb that says, without saying, I am not back with that man, I am doing me, and my me is currently located on another continent. I am not confirming that theory. But I am not confirming it either. That is why they pay detectives the big money, and why the fan detectives of this fanbase keep showing up to work unpaid. Now let me zoom all the way out, because this is the point in the video where I tell you exactly what I think, and I already know a percentage of you are going to be angry about it. That is fine. That is what the comments section is for. Here is my honest read on her as an artist right now. I think she is standing at a crossroads that every massive star eventually hits, and she is handling it worse than most. On one side of the road, the career. The music. The fans. The machine that made her one of the most famous women on the planet. The job, and it is a job, that funds the flights, the fashion, the life. On the other side of the road, fun. Freedom. Italy. Mucca. A life where nobody leaks her footage, nobody grades her budgets, and nobody has an opinion about her trucks. Every superstar reaches this fork eventually. The ones who survive it, the ones who turn fame into legacy, figure out how to make peace with the machine, or at least how to fake the peace convincingly. The ones who do not survive it start treating the job like a prison sentence in public, on live microphones, in front of the very people paying the bills. This week, Cardi B sounded a whole lot closer to the second group than the first, and if I were on her team, that audio would worry me far more than any leaked footage. Because let me tell you what actually disturbed me about that Spaces session, and it was not the cursing. Cardi B curses, water is wet, the sun rises in the east. It was not even the companionship comment, which was crude but was also, if we are being honest, just her being exactly who she has always told us she is. No, the part that genuinely sat wrong with me was the framing of work itself. The grievance in it. That entire session, strip away the jokes and the Libra talk and the shock value, was a woman complaining about doing the thing she is paid a fortune to do, to an audience of people who will never once in their lives be paid a fortune to do anything. And that gap, that specific gap between her grievance and her audience's reality, is where fanbases quietly start to die. Not with a scandal. Not with a flop. With a slow, collective shrug. The fans do not leave angry. They leave tired. And tired is so much worse, because angry fans still stream the music out of spite. Tired fans just stop showing up. And that brings me to the habit at the center of all of this, the one I genuinely believe is the most self-destructive pattern in her entire playbook. Cardi B cannot stay off Spaces. She cannot stay off the timeline. And I understand the impulse. When your name is being discussed by millions of strangers, the urge to grab the microphone and correct the record must be overwhelming. But look at the scoreboard. What has a single one of these sessions ever fixed? Name the beef that ended because of a Spaces. Name the narrative that improved. You cannot, because it has never happened. Every session becomes the story. Every rant becomes the headline. Every microphone she grabs to defend herself ends up testifying against her. Here is the part that makes it almost tragic: silence is completely free. There is no subscription fee. She does not have to see a single word the timeline says about her, not one. There are superstars her size who have not read a comment since 2019, and their piece is visible from space. The block button exists. Logging off exists. But the Spaces microphone keeps calling her name, and she keeps answering, and every time she answers, she hands the internet a fresh week of ammunition wrapped in a bow. And since we are keeping receipts tonight, let me say the quiet part about the pattern, because this week did not happen in a vacuum. Go back through the last several years and you will find the same loop on repeat. The timeline says something, she sees it, she grabs a microphone, the rant becomes the headline becomes the story, and the actual music, the thing with the chart positions and the budgets, gets buried under 48 hours of discourse about the discourse. Every single time, the commentary machine eats for a week, and every single time, her team presumably watches the rollout calendar catch fire. There is a reason the biggest stars in the world communicate through carefully staged announcements and let their work do the arguing. It is not cowardice. It is math. Every minute spent fighting the timeline is a minute the timeline is not spending on the record. And about that leak one more time, because the economics of it deserve a spotlight. A surprise single with a surprise video lives and dies on the moment, the synchronized drop, the premiere, the 24 hours where the entire internet experiences the same thing at the same time. When footage trickles out in shaky vertical clips a week early, the moment does not just get damaged. It gets spent. Leaked by the 1,000-phone crowd, reviewed by the fan pages, and ruled upon by the comment sections, all before the artist ever got to say the word premiere. That is the part of her anger I will co-sign without hesitation. The artist's frustration about losing control of her own moment. Valid. Completely valid. It is everything that came after that frustration, the framing of the job, the overseas confession, the verbal swinging at the fanbase, where she lost the plot and lost the room in the same breath. Now, the other side of the courtroom, because fair is fair. Were the fans wrong? Honestly, partly, yes. Leaking unfinished footage of an artist's unreleased work is a violation, even when the artist made the rookie decision to film in public. Trashing an unfinished video for looking cheap is even worse. That is not fandom, that is heckling from the front row wearing the team's jersey. If my own supporters did that to me, I would be heated too, and I would not be nearly as polite about it as a carefully edited YouTube video. But, and this is the but that actually matters, the fans did not invent this dynamic. She built it. A fan base raised on raw access, on unfiltered honesty, on the promise that what you see is exactly what you get. She taught them to treat her like family. And then she got furious when the family acted like family, loud, opinionated, entitled, and permanently in her business. You cannot sell authenticity as the brand and then file a complaint when the customers show up expecting the product. That is the paradox she has never solved, and until she does, we are going to be right back here, making this exact same video, with different details, every few months. Mark it down. So let's bring it home and stack everything we know in one place, because when you see the full picture assembled, the scale of this week comes into focus. Cardi B is sitting on the highest debuting female rap record of the year, a genuine, undeniable chart achievement that 99% of artists would trade a limb for. And instead of that being the headline of her week, the headline is a leaked video she did not authorize, a fan who nearly got arrested at her own shoot, a Spaces rant where she told her supporters they invade her dreams for punishment, a declaration that she would rather be overseas collecting companionship than collecting plaques, a fanbase openly questioning whether she even likes making music anymore, a viral investigation into whether a truck means she is back with Stefon Diggs, and a whisper out of Italy involving Mucca and a mystery woman that nobody, including me, can confirm yet, but everybody is watching. That is not a news week. That is a soap opera season compressed into about 72 hours. And that whisper is the loop I am intentionally leaving open. If the Italy story develops, if anything surfaces confirming who was where with whom, you already know I am going to be all over it, and the fans who told me about it in the first place will get their flowers. So consider this your formal invitation to be subscribed when that shoe drops, because if it drops the way it was described to me, we are going to need a whole separate video, a whole separate thumbnail, and possibly a whole separate therapist. Now I want to hear from you, because this is one of those stories where the comments section is genuinely the second half of the show. First question, were the fans wrong? Not legally, morally. Is leaking unreleased footage from a public shoot just the cost of fame in 2026, or did her own supporters cross a line that TMZ crosses for a living but family never should? Second question, the work rant. When Cardi B said the complaining makes her want to log off, take a flight, and go enjoy herself overseas instead of working, did you hear honesty from a woman setting boundaries, or did you hear an artist telling the people who fund her life that their passion project is her prison? Be honest, because I will be reading. And third, the one I am most curious about, the G-Wagon. Coincidence, co-parenting, or comeback? Is Cardi B tiptoeing back toward Stefon Diggs, or was that overseas crumb her way of burning that rumor to the ground and redirecting every camera toward Mucca without ever saying a single name? Drop your verdicts below, respectfully, or disrespectfully, it is your comment and your algorithmic footprint. That is the state of the union tonight. A superstar at war with her own fanbase, one man in Italy, one man in the driveway, one leaked video, one nearly arrested fan, and one microphone that Cardi B simply cannot stop picking up. If this deep dive earned its keep, you know what to do. Like the video, share it with the one friend who is going to have the loudest opinion about that Spaces audio, subscribe, and ring the bell, because this story is actively developing and the Italy thread alone could flip this entire narrative upside down by next week. Until then, keep your eyes on the timeline, keep your takes in the comments, and remember what we learned today: the loudest crash outs do not happen on stages. They happen on Spaces. I will talk to y'all on the next one.